Today, beginning with the prophet Haggai, we'll be doing Haggai. Now remember, Haggai came after Jeremiah. Haggai and Zephaniah and Malachi were during a period of time between the rebuilding of the temple. Zerubbabel and Yeshua are there, but Ezra and Nehemiah haven't made it yet, or are there also. So we have here, it's going to show you that he's writing this book at the same time. Several things are happening at one time. We have Daniel 9:24 is happening at this time. We have Ezra chapter 5 is happening. We have Nehemiah chapter 2 is happening. Haggai, Zephaniah. This is all around 444 BC. It's interesting when I've studied Daniel 9, which we haven't got to yet, the idea that, he's talking about in 24 where from the time the decree comes out to the time of the Messiah, the King, will be X amount of days. That time was happening right about at that time. Right about at that time when he petitions for God to help and forgiving of his sin and forgiving of national sin, he turned around and, of course, it took a while and Gabriel gets there and gives him the message that when you started praying, I was sent, but I had to battle with, Michael and I battled with the dark powers, the ones that wanted to keep him from getting to Daniel. You get the idea that perhaps faith is grown by, spiritual things grow by fervent prayer. So he was sent, and as long as we don't give up, the spirits don't give up, kind of thing. Or if they want to do it, but we give up and we're out of sync. I guess that would be a better way to say it. We're getting in sync with them to do something, but our faithlessness moves us out of sync. Point is, 9:24 happens, and it talks about when the decree is set forth to rebuild the kingdom, to rebuild the temple. Well, that decree was on its way. In Ezra 5, that's where we're talking about where they had tried to set up the kingdom. They tried to get started on the temple and setting up the city, and all the enemies came and fought against them and told them they needed to stop. And they sent it up to the king. The king said, "Yes, stop. We're going to stop and relook at this." Well, then at that point, Ezra, Haggai, and Zephaniah are there talking to Zerubbabel and Ezra, and they tell them that God says to keep moving forward. And of course, they write to Darius, and they find out, or to Cyrus, I think, and they find out anyway that the decree had been sent to rebuild the temple. So the lying liars were wrong, and the truth was the king wanted the city put back together, wanted the temple, and again, like I said when we went through Ezra, that he wanted to do that so that they would pray to this God for him and for his sons. But we have all five of these things happening together, so they're not spread out over time, they're happening in one event. So we have the things that Haggai and Zephaniah are saying are written to the ones who are in Jerusalem at the time of Zerubbabel, Yeshua, and of course with Nehemiah and Ezra. And that's where Haggai and Zephaniah fit in. So it gives us some context. And Haggai is actually not that bad of a book. It's a small little 3-chapter book. In the second year of Darius. Now it's interesting, you'll go to in the first year of Darius with Daniel. And of course with Ezra 5 and Nehemiah reference Darius being there at that time. In the second year of Darius, in the 6th month and the first day of the month, now a little bit of foreshadowing, when we get to Zechariah, not Zephaniah, sorry, Zechariah. Did I write Zephaniah? I meant Zechariah. I messed up. We already did Zephaniah. This is Zechariah. Okay. Haggai, Zechariah, Malachi. There we go. In Zechariah, he goes in the 8th month in the 2nd year. So, Haggai gets a vision in the 6th month. 2 months later, we have Zechariah getting this. In the 2nd year, in the 6th of the month, in the first day of the month, the word of the Lord came to Haggai, to Zerubbabel, governor of Judah, and Joshua, the high priest. Okay, so these guys, remember that the king had said anyone who wanted to go could go. So they went, and they went down and traveled, and Ezra went with them, and they traveled, and they started establishing Jerusalem and the temple. The word of the Lord came to Haggai. Is it time for you, to dwell in your citied houses, and this house lay waste? Now therefore, thus saith the Lord of hosts, consider your ways. When you get there, you're going to build up your houses. But what about building up mine? You're going to need to get your priorities straight here, guys. You have sown much, but bring in little. You eat, but not have enough. You drink, but you are not filled. You clothe yourself, but you're not warm. Consider your ways. You're not getting blessed because you're not prioritizing the Lord here. Go up to the mountain and bring wood and build the house, and I will take pleasure in it, and I will be glorified. You looked for much, and lo, it came to little, and you brought it home, and it did blow upon it. Why? Because mine house was in waste. You tried to go up and make a field, and it didn't get much. You tried to build, and you didn't have enough food. You didn't have enough water. You didn't have enough because you're not prioritizing Jehovah. And I call for a drought upon the land, and upon the corn, and upon the new wine, upon the oil, and upon the ground. Then Zerubbabel and Yeshua the high priest and all the remnant obeyed the voice of the Lord and the words of Haggai the prophet. And thus Haggai the Lord's messenger said, I am with you, saith Yahweh. Now, that's a good thing. We've seen these prophets up to now. Just, you're a bunch of sinners. I'm going to wipe you out. I'm going to take you away. I'm going to drag you away. I'm going to do all this stuff. Here, Haggai, right off the bat, you need to tweak a few things. I am with you. He even does it again. He stirs up the spirit of Zerubbabel and Joshua and the spirits of the people, and they came and did the work of the Lord. And in the 7th month, on the 21st day of the month, came the word of the Lord again to Haggai. Speak to Zerubbabel. I mean, this is interesting. He's speaking directly to Zerubbabel and Yeshua. Who is it among you that saw the house in its first glory? And how do you see it now? Is not your eyes in comparison? How does it look then based on how does it look now? Yet now be strong, O Zerubbabel, and Joshua, the high priest. Be strong and all your people. I am with you. Wonderful words to hear. I'm not against you. I'm not tearing you down. I am with you. For thus saith the Lord of hosts, yet once in a little while I will shake the heavens, and I will shake the nations, and the desire of all nations shall come. I will fill this house with glory. He's going to bring back his glory. This should be shouting terms for them. This should be shouting. The silver is mine and the gold is mine, says the Lord. This stuff that you're given to make, it's mine. The gold of the latter house shall be greater than the former, and will I give peace, saith the Lord. He's going to give me a peace. This is wonderful. When I said before about the minor prophets being harsh and terse, but then they turned a little bit and turned on the light, and God's going to do this, and God is going to redeem, and God is going to bring forth. Here, Zephaniah, not Zechariah, Haggai, that's what I'm talking about. Haggai is this pretty much a very positive tone to this in its overall. And according to the Lord of hosts, ask now the priest, if one bear holy flesh in the skirt, and the skirt touches bread or pottage or wine, is it clean? They said, no. Is one unclean by a dead body? If they touch thee, shall it be unclean? And they said, well, yes, it'll be unclean. So it is with this people, and so it is with this nation before me. He wants them to be clean, saith the Lord. So is every work of their hands, and that which they offer, they are unclean. So watch what you're doing, because you're going to make the worship unclean. So he's warning them they do have some standards they need to make. The statutes and the commandments are still in play. And now I pray you consider with this day and upward from before a stone has been laid, since the days that were to come, and you're going to heap all this up, and he talks about the building of this. I smote you with blasting and mildew and hail at the labors of your hands, and you turn not unto me, saith the Lord. Consider your ways now upward from the 24th day. So he did have a little bit of chastisement to them. He says that I sent blasting and mildew up until this day. Consider this day and upward from the 24th day of the 9th month, and from the day that the foundation of the Lord has been laid. Is it not seed yet in the barn, and yet the vine and the fig tree and the pomegranate and the olive tree have not brought forth? From this day will I bless you. He's going to start blessing them, but they had not been participating correctly. They've had unclean hands about this, and he's just straightening them up. He's just giving them some chastisement. And on the 24th day of that month, speak to Zerubbabel. I will shake the heavens and the earth, and I will overthrow the kingdoms, and I will overthrow the strength of the kingdoms of the heathen, and I will overthrow the chariots and the horse and those that ride upon it, and the horse and the rider shall come down, every one by the sword of his brother. And that day the Lord of hosts will I take thee, O Zerubbabel, my servant, the son of Shemuel, saith the Lord, and will make thee a signet, for I have chosen thee. So he's using him as a sign. He's using him as a means of this thing. You know this is going to happen. He is your sign. Zerubbabel was the sign, and he's going to overthrow the enemies at that time. So the enemies at that time will be overthrown by the Lord. So we see that God is moving for these people in ways that they couldn't move for themselves. And so that's the way this is going. They have this. So we see God moving in Haggai. We're going to see God moving in Zechariah. We're going to see God chastening again in Malachi. And all of this happens within the same time frame. So putting all of this together in that scope makes it more understood. Sometimes we read these books and scratch our heads. Okay, fine, I don't understand. When did Zerubbabel fit? How did this work? What was going on? But putting it in with Daniel and in with Zechariah and in with Ezra and Nehemiah really brings in a strong focus. So look at Haggai that way. Make sure that you're looking at the charts that I'm putting up. And this thing really makes a lot of sense, and it's really cool that God's moving for his people. Thank you.